Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dars highlights from December 5th, 2018. The Dars began by a question from Sidi Abd Salam, who asked, why is it that Khidr alayhi salam, when he responds to Musa at the end of their encounter and tells Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam why he had punctured the vessel and slayed the youth and rebuilt the wall, he uses the verb arada, or to desire, in three modes. He says aradtu, aradna, and arada rabbuka. I desired to damage the vessel, aradtu an a'ibaha. Then he says fa'aradna an yubaddilahuma. We desired that their Lord will change them with regard to the youth. And then arada rabbuka, thy Lord desired to rebuild the wall. And the Shaykh explained that this goes back to fana, or annihilation in annihilation in annihilation. Fana fil fana fil fana. In the path you begin by annihilation or passing away in the Shaykh, then passing away in the Prophet ﷺ, then passing away in Allah Azza wa Jal. These are the three stages. Aradtu, I desire, is the Shaykh's will. Aradna is, or our desire, we desired, is in the plural. It's the will of the tree, the initiatic tree, going back to the Prophet ﷺ. And arada rabbuka is the will of the Lord. The first, aradtu, I desired, the will here comes from the Shaykh. He manages his order, his tariqah, however he wishes. He governs his affairs in the way he sees fit, and he can destroy or puncture the vessel or the lower self, the nafs, of a disciple the way he wants, or he could do something else with that vessel. He is not obliged to follow a previous shaykh's methodology, and you can't tell him to do otherwise. The shaykh, you can't tell him Shaykh so-and-so used to do this or that. This doesn't apply for a renewer shaykh, a shaykh mujaddid. He destroys the vessel or punctures the vessel of the disciple however he wants, and you follow him just as you would follow a doctor. You don't impose, and you accept whatever the doctor prescribes, and no one can modify the path of the renewer Shaykh Mujaddid during the 100 years of his coming, or the 100 years of his cycle. And if you want to see a change in his path, you have to wait for another 100 years. That is aradtu an a'ibaha. I desired to puncture the vessel. As for aradna, we desired, this is the passing away or extinction in the Prophet ﷺ, al-fana'u fil rasul. This is the initiatic chain. All the shaykhs until the Prophet ﷺ, going all the way back to him, wanted things to be in this manner. They desired for the slaying of the youth or for the killing of the nafs. However, there is no aradna, or there is no plurality of desire of the tree and the Prophet ﷺ prior to the shaykh's desire, prior to aradtu. There is no fana, or passing away, in the Prophet, annihilation in the Messenger ﷺ, without annihilation in the Shaykh. Before claiming to act on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ's authority, you need the Shaykh's authority. Otherwise, you will be lost in the labyrinth of the lower soul, the labyrinth of the nafs. As for arada rabbuka, your Lord willed, this is pure lordship. This is the last stage, and it's through the initiatic tree, it's not exterior to it. Now, in the path, there are things that depend on the Shaykh, things that he does with permission or authority from the initiatic tree, and still things that are established by the Lord. As Sidna Ali karamallahu wajhah says, حدثني قلبي عن ربي. My heart spoke to me about my Lord. As a disciple, you connect to and find a connection with the Shaykh. You take him as your master, and you must imitate him in all things. You think you know him, but as long as you're not a perfect Xerox copy of him, you haven't attained knowledge of him. Your personality must change. Even physically, your body must become similar to that of the Shaykh. You must love what he loves, act how he acts, naturally and spontaneously in all things, until it becomes a second nature. Sometimes you'll start doing things without knowing them that you didn't previously do, spontaneously, and you later come to know that it's one of the habits of the Shaykh, and that is one of the signs of passing away in him. Through your Shaykh you take, and through him you receive. Then the Shaykh related an example of observing courtesy or adab with the Shaykh, even in a state of direct visionary experience or a mushahada, a witnessing. Sidi Suhail related this anecdote of a faqira who had excellent adab or courtesy with the Shaykh. And one day she was fasting and she was making dhikr during the day. And the Prophet ﷺ came to her and gave her dates in the spiritual realm, in the malakut. But she refused them because she was fasting. And this was all occurring in the malakut. And she said no until she called the Shaykh and asked for his permission. And the point here is even from the Prophet ﷺ in mushahada, in direct witnessing, you don't act on your vision without the Shaykh's permission, because what you see or experience in a vision is subject to interpretation, and you need the Shaykh as a point of reference to move forward. This is what it means to proclaim aradtu, I desired, in other words, to follow the desire, the will of the Shaykh. Now your heart, your intellect, and your physical body will never be completely like the Shaykh's, but you can have his companionship or suhbah through your love for him. And this is embodied in the encounter or in the famous account where a man asks the Prophet ﷺ, when is the hour? 3 times, and the Prophet says, woe unto you, what have you prepared for it? And he says, I've prepared nothing except that I love God and his messenger. And then he ﷺ responds, a person or a man is with the one he loves. Even if you haven't attained their rank, in other words, the rank of the messenger ﷺ, the fact that you see no trace of your own actions, and the fact that you only admit that you have love for the Prophet ﷺ in this case, means that you're with him. This man who said, I prepared nothing except that I love God and his messenger, this man had passed away in the af'al. He had passed away in the realm of deeds or practices. He no longer saw them. He became so habituated. And so he said, I see nothing, I did nothing except that I love God and his messenger. Some people lose patience. They'll say, I do qiyam, I observe night vigils, I fast, I still get no results. If you say this, you haven't even attained the lowest form of fana, which is fana in af'al, extinction in deeds or in actions, in God's acts, God's sustenance of your deeds, which is the basis. It's what you need to enter into the khalwa, to no longer observe your deeds. This is fana'u fil af'al, where you don't see them anymore. You've done so much, it becomes almost automatic. You have no consciousness of what you do anymore. Hence, you say, I've done nothing except that I love God and his messenger. So as a murid on this path, you need to learn to find the Shaykh within each murid, within each disciple. Then you will experience lowerings of your own self, because their company is difficult to maintain. But if you learn to see your Shaykh in each disciple, you'll be lost in the diversity of states and characters, and you'll slowly start to melt, and you will become like water flowing through the tree of the initiatic chain. You will transition from aradtu to aradna, from I desired to we desired, and you'll start to enter into a state of fana, annihilation, in the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. In the murids, in the disciples, you'll find contraction, in others you'll find expansions, and these states will edify you, they will educate you. As for seeking asrar, or inner secrets of the path, if you're seeking these asrar, you can only take what you're given, and you can't take more than what you have. And you have to accept what you have and be content with it, and to stay where you are, and to be content with your Lord, to be satisfied with Him, with what He has given you. And you must know that if you're with the Shaykh, you're already in the presence. The goal is the presence, the divine presence, not the accumulation of inner secrets of the path. It's not whether you have 1,000,000 asrar or whether you've entered the khalwa. It's whether you're in the hadra or not. The Shaykh also commented on our daily habits and the food that we eat and how that affects our ability to acquire ma'rifah. And he stressed the importance of conforming to the behavioral patterns of the Prophet ﷺ's food intake. He says things that you do on a daily basis, like eating seafood, mixing it with some kind of animal extract, this causes the rise of appetites within you. Or eating fish with milk or eggs, this causes health problems. And he stressed the importance of not mixing one's food, and even the importance of not showering on a full stomach, which leads to sterility. Being intimate with one's spouse on a full stomach, which leads to sterility and sexual problems. Doing things that, food intakes and so on, that cause an inclining to the lower self, to the sufliyat. If you follow the Prophet ﷺ's behavioral model, the sunnah, and you try not to eat until you're hungry, and you only eat what's enough for you, you don't eat till you're full, then your physique will help you attain direct knowledge of God, ma'rifah. So observe everything the Shaykh loves, because in what he loves there's a benefit for the times that you live in. And the Shaykh gave an example of Imam Shadhili's discovery of coffee, a Shaykh of his age who brings coffee to his murids, and in it there was a benefit for the followers. So observe what the Shaykh loves. He doesn't love things for his own lower self or in vain for his nafs. What he loves is fit for the times. Then he gave examples even for murids that are slaughtering chickens for the fuqara, telling them how to not pluck the feathers, then pull out the innards, but actually it should be the other way around. He stressed also the importance of not eating meat that's not fully cooked, because this causes illness, and that the greatest illness that all of these food imbalances cause is distance from ma'rifah, from knowledge of God. And with a healthy body, you can move easily spiritually. For instance, the 7 dates per day brings an equilibrium in the body, even if you're a diabetic. The Prophet ﷺ sleeping on the ground, or eating unrefined sea salt or unprocessed sea salt at the beginning and at the end of each meal, all these generate sort of a well-being and an equilibrium which facilitates the acquisition of ma'rifah. Tabligh wal Jama'ah practice these sunnahs very avidly, and they know them very well. The Shaykh made a point. He said that if you observe the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet ﷺ's family, they have an innate nature that inclines to what's healthy, even when they don't know it. And finally, he made a comment about the etiquette of calling one's family to the path, doing da'wah to one's families. And he said that some go back home to their wives or their daughters or children or parents, and they want to give them a rosary by force and tell them to go do the weird. And the Shaykh said this distances your family members from the path, and it's dangerous. The tariqah is reserved for those who are lovers, for the avid, for the thirsty. Those who are not thirsty, leave them alone, or they will begin to hate the path. Instead, what you should do is call them step by step, gradually and slowly, and never speak of yourself. Speak of God's friends, of the saints, the awliya. Make them love the awliya first, then the awliya of the past, then bring them into an awareness of the awliya of the present, then the Shaykh himself, then the importance of dhikr, the remembrance, then the divine light, and be patient, be slow, especially with family because it's very delicate. This is in contrast to inviting a stranger to the path that you meet. You can be straightforward and rather crude. Just tell him, go see the Nur. Give him something that will jolt him. With a stranger you can do that, something that will start their quest. With a family member, you have to make them love the path, then invite them to enter it. The day they start loving the path and ask for the wird, make them wait for a while until they're truly thirsty and can't wait any longer. And you have to do all this through your behavior. Your behavior has to change. With family, you call to the path with your hal, with your state. With strangers, you use your tongue, you use your lisan. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك